Welcome back to Power and Politics. The government's bringing the word royal back to the military, reinstating the names issued over 40 years ago. The Royal Canadian Navy, the Royal Canadian Air Force, and the Canadian Army, which never had the Royal in the title before 1968. But why are they doing it now? How much will the renaming cost? What's really at stake here? Let's find out. In Victoria, we've got the Associate Minister of National Defence, Julian Fantino. Minister, good to have you.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
Why decide to bring back the title Royal? What's the reason?
Well, basically, it's a matter of connecting with the glorious history of the military over the years, the different entities under which people fought the great wars and other conflicts and died. It's a matter of reconnecting with all of that. It's going back to recognizing and appreciating the importance of culture, heritage, and tradition, and it's very important for the men and women who serve in those particular areas of our Canadian military.
I want to show you a clip from the defense critic of the NDP, Jack Harris. He says this is not going to be just a tip of the hat to history, but it will be divisive to Canadians, that country back before 1968 is very different than the one we have today. Here's what he had to say.
It's the Canadian forces, and to use the term royal is unnecessary and in fact is divisive within Canada across the country. We don't think that it's necessary. We think that it divides people and doesn't bring them together, and we don't understand why this government would choose to do that rather than do something that brings people together.
One of the reasons he says it divides Canada, he says it brings back a colonial past that is no longer part of the Canada of today, that it should just be the Canadian Navy or the Canadian Air Force and the Canadian Army, although it is the Canadian Army still, not the Royal Canadian. What do you feel about that?
Well, I wouldn't expect any different. I mean, rhetoric is rhetoric. We're more focused on something that is tangible and meaningful, especially to the people who have served in those particular areas of our Canadian military under the Royal banner, if you will, and the Canadian Army, and it's a matter of connecting, again, as I stated, with the importance of culture, heritage, and traditions. No disrespect intended, but the critic would not probably appreciate that, not having had the experience, such as I can attribute to the connection that military people have with, say, law enforcement people. It's a matter of duty, it's a matter of pride, it's a matter of identifying with your past. That's why we celebrate the things that we do, because we pay respect, as we will next year, to the War of 1812.
But as Jack Granatstein, the military historian, said, and he's someone who respects history, it's one thing to respect tradition and history, and it's one thing to be slavish towards it and not be able to recognize that things have changed. So is there a sense, though, that since 1968, there's been many missions that have not been without the royal designation, that Canada is a different country, frankly, than it was, and without disrespecting the traditions, without disrespecting the veterans, without disrespecting the wars fought under the royal designation, why is it time to kind of move to a future that doesn't have that kind of royal designation?
Well, this is not about nostalgia or change. It's about remembering and reconnecting and paying respect to the very past that men and women, mainly men in the past conflicts, have died in that kind of a world. And we need today to connect with our past. We need to know where we've been. We need to know about our culture, our heritage, our tradition, and we need to pay respect to that. And that's all this is. This is not about a frivolous, meaningless change of name or title. It's something that is deeply rooted in the culture, the heritage, and tradition of the men and women, past and present, who served as our Canadian military.
I want to switch to the F-35s very quickly, but will there be a cost borne by this in terms of letterhead, uniforms, or anything? How much will this cost taxpayers?
I can't give you a definitive figure, but the cost will be transitioned into the everyday routines, if you will, of the changes that take place within a large organization like the Department of National Defense. It'll be phased in. It's not going to take away one nickel from operational requirements. So All of these things are factored, and like I
There's
say,
got to be I mean, this is a time of cuts, as you know,
Well-
and retrenchment. So there will be a cost, though, I'm sure, to implement this in terms of uniforms and letterhead. I mean, it's small, but it's a big organization.
Well, right now, the only change that I know of for certain will be the crests and some of those issues. So we're not talking about a wholesale revamping of uniforms or those kinds of issues.
I want to get your sense